Tuesday, November 5th, 2019, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. The stock markets continue to rage higher, new all-time highs. We've seen the Fed cut rates 3 times this year. Usually when the Fed gets on a rate cutting exercise, even though Jay Powell is saying it's only insurance, right? Usually that's when we've seen a big correction in the stock market, when we see the economy faltering, right? But it just goes to show that the Federal Reserve is only worried about the stock market. So is the President of the United States, right? The stock market has become like the tail wagging the dog, right? There's a dog behind here, Billy. He knows about that. So it's just quite amazing. Yeah, a lot of people out there like me have been warning people for a few years that we're near a top. I guess we have been near a top for the last 2 years. It looks like it wants to break out now. And with that in mind, I want to show you a couple of charts that I've gone over before a couple of years ago. And I actually said, yeah, we could keep going higher, looking at these very long-term charts. And we are very much near these resistances that I have. And by long-term, I mean 100 years. The charts I'm going to show you go back to 1920 of the Dow. One is a normal arithmetic chart, which looks very scary. The other one is more not as scary, is a logarithmic chart. It's based on percentage changes, right? So and then you decide to for yourself, of course, whether you think the stock market is overvalued or not. So let's start with the scary one here. So Dow Jones going back all the way to the year 1920. So there you go. It looks like a pretty flat line, doesn't it? All the way to 1950, and then it starts moving up a little more gradually. Still looks pretty much like a flat line, and you can see it takes off. Basically, starts taking off in the early 80s. You can see the crash of 87 there, just before 1990. And that's when Greenspan cut rates. In October 87, I think the Dow was around 2,200 or something like that. I don't remember. I wasn't in the markets back then. Dropped 500 points in one day, over 20%. And that was probably the inception of this bubble. That's when Greenspan crossed the Rubicon, right? And told the markets, from now on, the Fed's got your back, right? And that's what's been happening ever since. And that's where we're now, at an all-time high, closing yesterday, it looks like, 27,462. So this is a quarterly chart, of course. So now I'll show you the less scary chart. And I've been able to draw trend lines on this one. You can see there the top in 1929. The top was 386.10. And then it dropped in the third quarter of 1932 to 40. So the Dow dropped, 90% almost, I think, there. The top trend line is the one I've talked about a few times. A couple of years ago, that trend line was coming in around... Yeah, it was coming in around 28,000, 29,000. And it's upward sloping. So right now, as you can see, we're right near the top of that trend line. But it could mean the Dow could go higher. We could go to 30,000. But as you can see, we're very much hugging the top of that trend line. On the downside, as you can see, there's a lot of room, right? Looking at that bottom trend line, that's around 6,700, which ironically is near the lows from 2009 after the financial collapse. So that's very interesting that that trend line there on the downside comes right near the low of the 2009 low. So that's what I wanted to show you, the stock market and how it looks. Overnight, we've seen more news about this trade saga between the US and China. FT is reporting US considers dropping some tariffs on China. Officials debate rolling back levies on 112 billion of goods to secure a broader ceasefire deal. What's a ceasefire deal? Again, I will reiterate, as I've been saying the last 6 months or even more, there was supposed to have been a sealed and signed trade deal by March 1st, 2019. Yes, early this year, and we're still here, right? So that's what's out there right now. So let's check where the markets are. It's 7:34 a.m. London. So the markets are still fairly quiet in London, even though people are getting to their desks. Someone asked me, when you talk about the markets in London, why don't you talk about the FTSE or the UK markets? Well, the London market is truly trades everything around the world. FTSEs, we do trade the FTSE futures and stuff, but not as much as the other stuff. In London, there's more American banks than there are American banks in New York. Yes, we trade everything, every currency. So, and when I talk about the markets too in the morning, and I show you and talk about what's going on, what the prices are doing, this would be as if I was talking to a client of mine who calls on the phone, for example, who used to call on the phone, was still at home and wanted to know where things were. Pretty much would want to know the things I talk about in the morning. But I'll let you know where the FTSE is right now, though. Anyway, so we've got spot gold down about $3, 1506.50. Range has been 1502 to 1510. So gold and silver still looking like they're trying to break out of some important, how can I say, formations. Like in gold, there's the falling wedge I've spoken about, and in silver, there's a bull flag, right? We've broken out of the top of those, but we still haven't gotten the lift-off, in my opinion. Silver is unchanged, 1805. Range has been 1798 to 1809. The stock market has been higher. It's come off a little bit. It's up about 40 points, the Dow right now. It's been up as much as 75 on the back of that trade news. But notice how usually when you get news about trade in the last few weeks, if you got something like that, we probably would have seen a 150 or 200 point gain. Is the market starting to stall? Who knows? So the Dow is just at 27,500 basically, just around there. The high has been 27,535. S&P is up 4.5, 3,083, and these are all the futures, of course. Nasdaq 100 futures up 1/3% at 82.33. So what about the FTSE? Well, the FTSE is up 17 points at 73.81, and I would say that the FTSE made a top around 7,000 in the year 2000, right? So FTSE hasn't been doing as well as the Dow. I mean, that's the other thing. The US stock market is way ahead of all the other world's stock market. Is that because the US economy is so much greater? Maybe a little bit, partly, but I would say it's because the Federal Reserve and the dollar have the exorbitant privilege of just creating credit out of thin air, and that credit flows into paper assets, right? Anyway, what about the currencies? Sterling is at 128.94, up slightly. The euro 111.35, unchanged. Dollar is up against the yen, 0.2% at 108.80. The dollar is down almost 0.5% against the yuan. It's actually testing the 7 level. We're at 700.25. And that's probably because of the trade news, right? If the closer the US and China get to a trade deal, the stronger the yuan will get, the weaker the dollar will get. So is a trade deal priced into the stock markets and the currency markets? Who knows? Because what if they do get a deal? What's there to look forward to drive the stock markets higher? After all, there's the old saying, buy the rumor, sell the fact, right? So don't forget about that. Crude oil, still fairly firm. WTI is down slightly overnight, but still at 56.50. Brent, almost at 62, 61.96. The 10-year yield, yeah, we're back up to 180. We have been to 180 in the past week or so. Just prior to the Fed rate cut last week, we were above 180. So we're back up to those levels here in the 10-year yield. So, yeah, you can't fight the Fed. That's the old saying. Or the PPT or Uncle Sam, right? They're piling on the debt. They're piling on the easy money for speculators, and that's going to the stock market right now. But as you saw by those charts, the stock market is not undervalued. Is it any wonder that Warren Buffett is holding around 130 billion in short-term T-bills and cash? If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Make sure you hit that little notification bell above to be notified of all my new videos. You can also follow me on Twitter, Steemit, and on DTube. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.